The night hung heavy over the countryside, its silence broken by a scream that tore through the air like a blade. "Laura Miller," said John, "did you hear that?" Her voice trembled as she pulled her robe tighter around her. John Miller muttered, "Stay here, I'll check," though his own breath quivered with unease. Their daughter Emily Miller whimpered, "Grandma, tuck me in. Daddy, she's here." Her words sent a chill racing down John's spine. The air thickened with a metallic tang, a stench of rust and blood clinging to the damp wood of the abandoned farmhouse nearby. Laura whispered, "That place has been empty since your mother died." John swallowed hard, unable to answer. Inside the cracked walls of the farmhouse, boards creaked as if dragged under invisible weight. Shadows slithered across the broken window panes, curling like smoke. Emily's eyes widened, unblinking, as she pointed toward the shattered doorway. John's legs froze, refusing to move forward, though he felt the whisper of his own name stretch from the blackness. It came slow and hoarse, scraping the silence apart. Laura clutched Emily, her knuckles white, whispering prayers between sharp breaths. Then came the sound again, something heavy being dragged across warped floorboards, closer, deliberate, unstoppable. The farmhouse loomed like a corpse stitched together with rotten timber, its windows blank eyes staring. John Miller said, "This isn't right. Something's in there." Laura Miller whispered, "It's her, John. Your mother." Emily Miller shivered. "Grandma said she wouldn't let me sleep alone." The words weighed heavier than the night air. The wind rattled the broken shutters, sounding like fingernails scraping down a coffin lid. John rubbed his temples, torn between disbelief and the icy certainty in Emily's voice. Laura clutched the child closer, her eyes red with tears, whispering prayers through cracked lips. Something groaned inside the house, low and deliberate, as if the walls themselves breathed. John stepped closer, every nerve screaming to flee, yet Emily's small voice chained him. The silence after each creak was worse than the sound, like a predator pausing before it pounced. The door yawned open with a groan, wood splintering, as if reluctant to expose its secrets. John Miller whispered, "If she's here, it isn't her anymore." Laura Miller said, "Don't speak like that," clutching Emily tighter. Emily muttered, "She sang me a lullaby." I heard her voice. The faint melody slithered through the hall, distorted, like a child's toy winding down. Dust shimmered in the thin beams of moonlight, stabbing through the roof. The floor groaned beneath an unseen weight, dragging forward with dreadful intent. John's hands shook, knuckles white as he forced himself one step inside. Laura gasped, "John, don't!" But he didn't answer. Emily's trembling finger pointed toward the hall, lips quivering. The air grew colder, thick as stone, each breath cutting like knives. Inside, the smell hit him first, a sour mix of damp wood and coppery blood. John Miller whispered, "It reeks of death." Laura Miller's muffled sob answered, though she dared not step in. Emily Miller murmured, "She wants me to sleep." The whisper carried through the hall, echoing strangely, repeating itself like overlapping voices. John's boots creaked against warped planks, each step followed by a dragging echo that wasn't his. He stopped, heartbeat roaring in his ears, realizing the echo was delayed, like something following. A shadow stretched unnaturally long against the wall, but when he turned, nothing was there. Laura cried, "Come back, please." John clenched his fists, staring into the hall as the lullaby hummed again, closer now, almost at his ear. The whisper turned into a rasping breath, dragging along John Miller's name as if savoring it. Laura Miller pleaded, "Stop listening. Get out." Emily Miller whispered, "She's here to tuck me in." John felt the air shift, as if an unseen hand brushed his neck. His chest seized with fear, but he forced a shaky whisper, "Mother, is that you?" The silence after his question was unbearable, crushing. Then the sound came, wood scraping, nails clawing, crawling closer. Emily began to hum the lullaby, her voice eerily in sync with the phantom melody. Laura screamed, "Emily, stop!" But the girl's eyes rolled upward, trance-like. John staggered backward as the darkness beyond the hall thickened, shape forming fragile at first but undeniable. A silhouette he knew too well. The farmhouse door slammed shut, though no one touched it, making Laura Miller scream and grip Emily Miller tighter. John Miller pressed his palms to the wood, but it wouldn't budge. Laura whispered, "She's locking us in." Emily whimpered, "Grandma doesn't want us to leave." The words chilled John more than the wind. A low hum echoed through the halls, the same lullaby his mother once sang. John muttered, "That's not her, Emily. It can't be." Laura cried, "Then what is it?" Her breath caught as the floorboards trembled under heavy unseen steps. Dust rained from the ceiling. Emily's voice grew louder, echoing with the hum, her eyes glassy as if in a trance. John shook her shoulders. "Emily, stop." But the child's voice only blended deeper into the melody, as though joining something hidden inside the walls. The humming stopped all at once, leaving a silence so sharp it hurt. John Miller whispered, "It's listening." Laura Miller dragged Emily Miller back toward the corner, but the boards groaned as though something followed. A faint whisper called John's name again, each syllable rasping like bone dragged across stone. Emily said, "She's angry because you don't believe." Laura hissed, "Don't say that." Her voice cracked under the weight of her fear. A cold draft slithered through the room, carrying the scent of lilies, his mother's favorite flower. John's face went pale. He whispered, "It smells like her funeral." Laura pulled Emily closer, but the child pushed back, reaching toward the hall. John's stomach twisted as he realized Emily was smiling faintly in the darkness. The floor creaked, as though something dragged its weight closer, slow and patient. John Miller whispered, "Stay behind me." Laura Miller pleaded, "We need to leave now." Emily Miller tilted her head, eyes unfocused, murmuring, "Grandma said it's safe if we stay." Her small voice sounded distant, like it belonged to another room. John clenched his fists, forcing himself forward, though each step felt like sinking into a grave. A shadow stretched across the wall, grotesque and too long, bending with movements that didn't belong to any human form. Laura gasped, "It's here!" John stepped into the hall, his pulse racing, but nothing visible moved. The shadow shifted again, lips forming silently as though trying to speak. John Miller's heart pounded as the shadow's mouth opened wider, though no sound came. Emily Miller suddenly sang the lullaby again, her voice eerily calm. Laura Miller screamed, "Emily, stop!" John turned to the child, shaking his head violently, but her gaze never left the shadow. The warped silhouette began to bend toward the floor, lengthening like melted wax. Dust swirled around John's boots. He shouted, "Leave us alone," but the walls shuddered in response. Laura's tears streamed down her face as she pulled Emily into her arms. The girl's voice cracked on the final note, and for an instant the shadow froze, then twisted violently as though writhing in rage. The silence after the lullaby collapsed into a deafening thud, as if something massive hit the floor. The board splintered beneath John Miller's feet, forcing him to stagger backward. Laura Miller screamed, clutching Emily Miller tighter as plaster rained from the ceiling. Emily whispered, "She's angry now," her voice not her own but layered, like two voices at once. John shouted, "Get out, both of you!" But the door behind them remained locked, rattling against invisible force. Laura cried, "We can't!" A chilling laugh, low and broken, crawled from the shadows, echoing through every wall. Emily tilted her head with a faint smile, whispering, "She's coming." The farmhouse shuddered as if alive, the beams groaning like bones straining to hold secrets too heavy. John Miller shouted, "This ends tonight." His words cracked, betraying his fear. Laura Miller whispered, "We need help, John. We can't fight her alone." Emily Miller's eyes flickered with strange light as she murmured, She said, "No one else can come inside." The wind outside rattled the shutters until one flew open, slamming against the wall. John's fists clenched as he said, "Then we'll drag her into the open." A sudden knock echoed from the far wall, though no door was there, sharp, and deliberate. Laura gasped. "Someone's here." John shook his head, muttering, "No, it's her playing tricks." Emily whispered, "Grandma doesn't like being ignored." The knocking grew louder, steady as a heartbeat, until dust showered from the rafters. The knocking stopped, and silence pressed against their ears until it seemed deafening. Then came a single thud from the floor, heavy, as though something crawled beneath the boards. John Miller stomped the floor angrily, shouting, "Show yourself!" The response was a ripple, the wood flexing like water beneath his boots. Laura Miller cried, "Don't provoke it." Emily Miller smiled faintly, whispering, "She's under us." Her tiny hand slid toward the ground. John yanked her back, but the air dropped 10 degrees, breath fogging. A faint voice rose from the boards, fractured and wet, calling John's name. Laura wept openly, shaking her head. "It's not her," John said firmly, but his voice wavered. The floorboards bulged upward, as if something pushed against them, splintering in sharp cracks. The boards split open with a deafening crack, spraying splinters across the room. A skeletal hand, blackened and rotten, thrust through the gap before vanishing back into the dark. Laura Miller screamed, dragging Emily Miller against her chest. John Miller staggered back, face pale, whispering, "She's trying to crawl out." Emily whispered, "She wants to tuck me in," she promised. Her words echoed as if two voices spoke at once, one hers and one impossibly old. John's body shook, rage battling terror as he shouted, "You won't have her!" A chill swept the room, and the walls bled condensation, water dripping as though the house itself wept. The lullaby began again, louder, clearer, as if sung through Emily's lips and the air around them simultaneously. John Miller's fury erupted as he grabbed a broken chair leg, raising it like a weapon. "Stay back," he shouted into the shadows. Laura Miller sobbed, "You'll only make it worse." Emily Miller sang softly, the lullaby perfectly steady, her voice void of emotion. The skeletal hand clawed again, dragging long grooves into the wood before slipping away. John swung the chair leg down hard, splintering the floor, screaming, "Leave us alone!" The boards hissed, steam rising from the cracks as though the wood itself burned cold. Laura clutched Emily tighter, rocking her back and forth. Emily whispered, "She's angry with you, Daddy." John's arm dropped, his strength draining as the lullaby grew louder, shaking the air with unnatural harmony. The floor fell silent, but the air swelled with pressure, pressing on their chests. John Miller dropped the chair leg, whispering, "It stopped." Laura Miller shook her head, eyes wide with dread. Emily Miller looked up slowly, her pupils dilated until black swallowed all color. "She's not under the floor anymore," Emily whispered. John's breath caught. "Then where is she?" Laura clung tighter, trembling violently. The shadows thickened in the far corner, coiling into the vague form of a woman. Her face remained hidden, but the outline of a frail body was unmistakable. Emily smiled faintly, whispering, "Grandma found another way in." The figure shifted closer without sound, gliding across the boards as if floating. John stepped in front of his family, fists shaking. The shadowed figure lingered in the corner, its outline wavering like smoke. John Miller stepped forward, trembling, whispering, "Mother, what did you do?" Laura Miller clutched Emily Miller, rocking her, whispering prayers. Emily Miller's small voice carried strange weight. "Grandma," said the family, "never forgave her." John's throat closed as the shadow flickered, its form warping into fragments of a face. Laura asked, "What is she talking about, John?" He shook his head, voice cracking. It was supposed to be buried with her. Emily's expression grew distant, eyes glowing faintly as she murmured, "Secrets never stay buried." The farmhouse walls groaned, timber straining as though alive. Dust rained from the rafters as the shadow stretched further across the boards, its silent mouth moving like it whispered, truth too terrible to hear. The shadow's lips formed silent words, yet Emily Miller spoke them aloud, as if translating. "She said John should have told you the truth," the girl whispered. Laura Miller froze, her eyes narrowing at John. What truth? She demanded. John staggered, his face pale. It's nothing, Laura. Please. Emily's voice deepened unnaturally, two tones overlapping. He knows how she died. He knows why she lingers. Laura's grip on Emily tightened as she gasped, You lied to me. John shook his head violently. I tried to protect us. The shadow surged against the wall, bending its shape into a skeletal outline of a woman with long hair. Emily tilted her head toward John and said, She didn't die peacefully, Daddy. You watched. The air turned icy as Laura's breath caught in horror. John Miller fell to his knees, his voice breaking. I tried to stop it. She was sick. She begged me to end it. Laura Miller cried out, You killed her? John shook his head. I eased her suffering. I didn't want Emily to know. Emily's voice grew harsher, layered with that of an older woman. You didn't let me rest, John. You bound me here. Laura's tears streamed as she whispered, You never told me. The shadow writhed violently, its outline flickering between frail body and monstrous form. John's hands trembled as he reached out, whispering, Mother, forgive me. Emily smiled faintly, though her eyes remained hollow, and whispered, She won't forgive. The farmhouse groaned, and the floor split further as cold wind howled through unseen cracks. The farmhouse seemed to breathe, boards expanding and contracting with unnatural rhythm. John Miller shouted, I only wanted peace for you. Laura Miller sobbed, You cursed us instead. Emily Miller's laughter rang out, cold and childlike, yet tainted with a rasping undertone. Grandma, said she, remembers the rope. Emily whispered, her voice inhumanly calm. John's body shook violently as he muttered, Stop, don't say it. Laura's face twisted in horror. The rope, you hung her? John wailed. She asked me to. She was suffering. Emily's gaze turned distant, her lips trembling. She said it wasn't mercy, it was betrayal. The shadow surged forward, stretching across the room, and the sound of creaking rope filled the air, dangling from nowhere above them. The shadow now loomed fully, the shape of a woman with rope burns carved into her throat. Emily Miller's voice carried both her childlike tone and the rasp of the dead. She said you abandoned her soul. John Miller collapsed against the wall, whispering, I tried to help. Laura Miller shook her head, clutching Emily tighter. You lied to us all. You lied to her. The figure drifted closer, head tilted, eyes hollow voids. Emily whispered, She wants what was taken. John's body convulsed with sobs as the air pressed heavier. Every breath strangled. Laura screamed, What does she want? Emily's voice answered, soft but merciless. She wants to finish what he started. The walls bled dark streaks as the house groaned under the weight of the truth. The farmhouse air thickened until it felt like drowning in smoke. John Miller clutched his chest, whispering, She's feeding on us. Laura Miller pressed Emily Miller closer, her eyes wide, demanding, What aren't you telling me? Emily's voice cut through, eerily calm. Grandma, said Daddy, promised to keep her secret forever. John staggered backward, his face pale, whispering, Emily, stop. Laura's expression hardened as she whispered, You let this into our home, didn't you? John shook his head violently, shouting, I tried to protect us. The walls shuddered as if agreeing with Laura, dust raining in heavy clouds. Emily smiled faintly, whispering, Grandma said betrayal runs in blood. Laura gasped, her breath sharp, as the shadow shifted closer, its form more solid, revealing rope-burned skin across its throat. Laura Miller's face twisted between horror and fury. You lied to me, she hissed at John Miller. Emily Miller's voice echoed, layered with the rasp of the dead. He let her hang alone. John fell to his knees, whispering, She asked me to end it. Laura's tears glistened as she shouted, You left me in the dark. The shadow stretched toward Laura and Emily, its form reaching like hands grasping for them. Emily's head tilted as she murmured, She says Mommy should have known sooner. Laura turned on John, screaming, You betrayed all of us. The floor groaned and split further, boards snapping one by one. John pressed his palms to the floor, sobbing, I tried to save her. The rope-burned figure loomed larger, its hollow gaze fixed on him. The floorboard split wide, exposing blackness beneath, the void breathing cold air. Laura Miller cried, "She'll take us all." John Miller shouted, "Not if she takes me first." Emily Miller whispered, "She wants me, Daddy, not you." Her voice dripped with certainty, unnatural for a child. John grabbed Emily's shoulders, pleading, "Fight her, stay with us." Laura clutched John's arm, screaming, "Don't let go." The rope-burned figure rose halfway from the void, arms long and skeletal, dripping with darkness. Emily's lips curved faintly into a smile as she whispered, "She said I already chose." John's breath caught as his daughter's eyes rolled back, showing only white. Laura's scream filled the house as the figure's hands reached for Emily's face, its form trembling with hunger. The rope-burned figure leaned closer, whispering through Emily Miller's lips, "Blood is betrayal. Betrayal is bond." John Miller shook violently, shouting, "I'll give you myself, just leave them." Laura Miller pulled at Emily, her tears streaking, crying, "She's only a child." Emily's body stiffened as if bound by unseen strings. John screamed, "Take me." But Emily whispered, "She only wants me." The shadow grinned through her hollowed expression, the rope marks glowing faintly. Laura's cries turned into raw, broken sobs, her nails digging into the wood. The farmhouse lights flickered, though no electricity remained, the glow turning the walls crimson. John's face twisted in anguish, begging, "Then take me instead." The shadow's gaze locked with Emily's eyes, and the child whispered, "She says Daddy's already hers." The house roared like a living beast, beams shaking violently, dust raining like storm. John Miller shouted, "I won't let her have you." He pulled Emily Miller from Laura Miller's arms, clutching her tightly. Emily's voice was cold. "Grandma said you already belonged to her." The rope-burned figure loomed tall, filling the room with its shadow, its hollow gaze fixed on John. Laura screamed, "Don't touch her!" But her voice drowned in the echo of cracking wood. John held Emily against his chest, shouting into the dark, "Then take me instead." Emily's face pressed into his shoulder, whispering, "She will." The figure surged forward, its shadow wrapping around John and Emily. Laura's scream tore through the farmhouse as the darkness swallowed them both, leaving only silence and the faint sound of a lullaby. The farmhouse shook as if gripped by an earthquake, dust choking the air. John Miller held Emily Miller tightly, screaming, "You can't take her!" Laura Miller cried, "She's killing us all." The rope-burned figure loomed above, its eyes hollow voids. Emily whispered coldly, "Grandma said bedtime never ends." John pressed Emily against his chest, tears burning his face, whispering, "Please, fight her, Emily." The girl's voice layered with the rasp of the dead, "She is stronger than you, Daddy." Laura clawed at the walls, her nails breaking, screaming, "We have to leave." The beams cracked, plaster rained, and the shadows swelled, its form stretching wider than the room. The lullaby thundered like a choir of whispers, suffocating every sound of breath. The rope-burned figure leaned closer, its face half-formed with sagging skin and hollow sockets. John Miller shouted, "Take me, not her." Emily Miller's voice hissed, "She already has you." Laura Miller shook her head violently, crying, "No, she wants the child." Emily's small hand lifted, trembling as if offering herself. John gripped her wrist, crying out, "No, Emily." The figure's shadow wrapped around John's arm, squeezing until the bone cracked audibly. Laura screamed his name, her voice shredded with terror. The air grew colder still, breath turning to frost, the floorboards icing over beneath them. Emily's lips whispered lullabies, her voice calm while her eyes remained blank voids. John roared in defiance, though his arm bled beneath the crushing darkness. The figure's mouth opened wide, black mist pouring out like smoke, wrapping around Emily Miller's head. Laura Miller screamed, clawing toward her daughter, "Let her go." John Miller staggered, blood dripping from his arm, yelling, "Fight her, Emily." Emily's body convulsed, her voice a mixture of sobs and whispers. She said she'll never leave. The black mist slithered into Emily's mouth, choking her. John shook her violently, sobbing, "Don't let her in." Laura fell to her knees, beating the floor, her face twisted in agony. The farmhouse walls bled again, dark streaks dripping like veins pulsing. The rope-burned figure stretched its arms toward Emily, whispering through her voice, "Forever, my little girl." John roared, charging against the shadow with every ounce of strength left. The black mist burned John Miller's skin as he pulled Emily Miller from the shadow's grasp, his scream echoing. Laura Miller clung to John's back, sobbing, "Don't let go." The rope-burned figure screeched, its voice splitting the walls like shattered glass. Emily coughed violently, her body jerking, whispering, "She won't let go of me." John pressed his forehead against Emily's, crying, "I won't lose you." The figure's arms twisted, bones cracking as it lunged forward. Laura shrieked, "It's too strong," but John roared back, "Then it will take me first." He pulled Emily into his chest, shielding her, as the figure's hollow eyes narrowed, dripping black tears that sizzled into the floor. The lullaby rose again, louder, rattling the house like thunder. The farmhouse collapsed inward, as if devoured by the shadow itself. John Miller screamed, "Take me." His voice broke, but his arms held Emily Miller tightly, shielding her from the void. Laura Miller cried, "Don't leave us." Her sobs drowned under the roar of splitting beams. The rope-burned figure surged forward, merging with John, its shadow wrapping his entire body in darkness. Emily's voice pierced through, a desperate cry, "Daddy?" John's final words echoed, "I love you," before the black swallowed him whole. Laura collapsed, pulling Emily to her, both sobbing, as the shadow pulled John into the floor. The lullaby quieted into silence, leaving only the echo of rope creaking in the rafters. The farmhouse stood still, broken, as if nothing had happened, yet emptiness filled the air. Silence choked the farmhouse after John Miller vanished, the air heavy with the weight of absence. Laura Miller cradled Emily Miller against her chest, whispering, "We're safe now." Emily's face tilted upward, her lips curling into a faint smile. "Grandma," said Daddy stayed with her, she whispered coldly. Laura shook her head violently, crying, "Don't say that." The boards groaned beneath them, though no one walked. Laura dragged Emily toward the door, forcing it open with trembling hands. The night air struck her face, but the chill of the house clung to her skin. Emily's eyes glowed faintly in the moonlight as she whispered, "She tucked me in again." Laura sobbed uncontrollably, realizing the nightmare had not ended, only shifted. Laura Miller stumbled into the cold night, carrying Emily Miller across the porch. The farmhouse groaned, its windows rattling as though alive. Laura whispered, we're leaving," her voice desperate. Emily pressed her cheek against Laura's shoulder, whispering, "Grandma doesn't want us to go." The wind rose violently, howling through the trees, carrying faint echoes of a lullaby. Laura's steps faltered, fear pulling her gaze back toward the house. In the upper window, a silhouette appeared, John Miller's figure, standing motionless, hollow-eyed, staring at them. Laura gasped, nearly dropping Emily, whispering, "John?" Emily murmured softly. Grandma tucked him in too. Laura Miller ran toward the dirt road, her breath tearing through the silence, while Emily Miller hummed softly against her chest. Behind them, the farmhouse seemed to pulse with light, shadows shifting within. Laura shouted, "Stop singing!" Emily replied softly, "Grandma says it calms me." Laura tripped, falling hard into the mud, Emily tumbling beside her. The child sat upright calmly, humming the lullaby louder, her gaze fixed on the farmhouse. Laura crawled toward her, grabbing her arms, shouting, "You're not hers." Emily turned her head slowly, her eyes pale white, and whispered, "I've always been hers." Laura Miller screamed, shaking Emily Miller violently, tears blinding her. "Fight her, please," she cried. Emily tilted her head, whispering, "She's all I have left." The farmhouse windows shattered one by one, shards spraying into the night like silver rain. Laura shielded Emily from the glass, sobbing, "She took John, don't let her take you too." Emily smiled faintly, her voice layered with the rasp of the dead. Daddy isn't gone. He's with us now. Laura clutched Emily close, rocking, begging, "Please, please, don't leave me." The child's voice answered, flat and cold, "I already did." The farmhouse groaned louder, like laughter spilling into the night. The night fell silent, broken only by the lullaby drifting through the wind. Laura Miller held Emily Miller tightly, rocking her, whispering prayers. Emily's lips moved in time with the lullaby, eyes staring blankly past her mother. From the farmhouse, the shadow of the rope-burned woman rose tall against the moon, John Miller's silhouette standing beside it. Laura's sobs turned to screams, echoing down the road. Emily whispered faintly, "Grandma said she'll tuck us both in tonight." The wind cut sharply, extinguishing the crickets and leaving the world in stillness. The farmhouse stood silent and unbroken, as though nothing had ever happened. Only the creaking of an invisible rope swung gently in the air,